A left-wing cultist says, quote, "I joined a far-right group of moms. What I witnessed was frightening." Frightening indeed. You know, a lot of people don't like it that I call people on the left cultists. And that isn't to say every single person on the left. Specifically, I'm referring to left-wing cultists. But it's true. And this article, I think, is actually a bit of a white pill, as it were. It should give you hope and optimism, because it shows you they really are in a cult. In this story of the leftist cult member infiltrating a far-right group of moms, what she actually discovers is that it is a moderate to conservative group of moms of varying opinions, some of whom think racism is a problem, some of whom who don't, many of whom think indoctrination is wrong and want their children to be free from coercion. But you can see by her reaction just what makes them a cult. They genuinely don't understand that people who have differing opinions, that moderates and conservatives, they don't understand that they're not far right. And what they actually uncover in this is a group of nice people who are there to protect children, who want children to flourish and be successful and not indoctrinated. But therein lies the big issue. Zealots and religious extremists are shocked and angered and confused. Why won't you do what we tell you? We've tried threatening you. We've tried beating you down, locking you in your homes, taking away your jobs. Why won't you comply? Regular people are saying no. So I think this article, although it's framed in a rather silly way, is a must read for people who are on the side of freedom and liberty and those who oppose the cult. Let me read for you their findings after infiltrating the far right. From Huffington Post, they write, quote, "Look out for the trigger words," the woman says. She's perched on a chair in front of the room. She's well-dressed yet funky with elegant boots, a demure sweater and some colorful jewelry, equality, diversity, inclusion, marginalization. These words are CRT. If you see these words in your kid's homework, you need to speak out. Well, it's equity, not equality. I am in a meeting held by a local right-wing moms group. It's an organization catering to mothers who are bent on protesting at school board meetings to stop the supposedly evil critical race theory agenda from being taught in public schools and address other typically conservative concerns. Critical race theory is not currently being taught in public schools. And that's where we begin. A lie, a manipulation. When they say critical race theory is not being taught in schools, what they mean is nobody handed children a book on critical race theory. What they're doing is they're applying critical race theory. Another way to explain to those who don't understand, like I assume most of you do, is they're not teaching the Bible in school. That's ridiculous. They're just asking kids to reflect upon their sin and to say say 7 Hail Marys and 3 Our Fathers. That's not teaching people the Bible. That's what they're doing. They're applying critical race theory in their teachings and then claiming it's not being taught. Well, that's one way to get started. They say there are about 20 of us. We're all maskless, all apparently white. I love how they say apparently because they don't know. Mostly women and all on the younger side. I'm in my early 40s and I seem to be the oldest person in the room, a group of children, including my son, the only one in a mask. They're scampering merrily in a play area down the hall while a young woman with a baby in her front carrier keeps an eye on them. On the wall by the door of our seminar room is a sign. It says, "Children should be heard, respected, encouraged, loved, appreciated, guided with compassion, given freedom to learn without coercion." What exactly that last phrase means is ominously vague. Here's what I love here. She brings her kid to one of these far-right meetings. She has her kid wearing a mask, the only one. No one insults her. No one derides her. No one questions her. It's fine. They don't care. You see how these people, they're in a cult. For several years now, I have been worried about the increasing right-wing views that I have noticed in my demographic, white suburban women. Before 2016, I always thought of Nazis as mainly historical villains that belonged in Indiana Jones movies or old newsreels or the sad stories my grandfather told me. Now, however, as the last Holocaust survivors are dying, I am aware that fascism is creeping back into the world at large and terrifying ways. Here's what's frustrating. Because of our tolerance, the freedom-loving individuals, we have ceded institutions, schools, movies, TV, government to fascists. And I don't know if fascist is the right word. We probably need a different word for it. But this woman who's writing this, she doesn't understand she's talking about herself. And it's fascinating because when you read her assessment of the moms in this room, you start to realize you're not alone. This is the important takeaway from this article. I know you're not a Nazi. I know this lady's insane and in a cult. And we know that when you have a group of people with differing opinions that disagree with each other, some who believe in systemic racism, some who don't, some who voted for Trump, some who didn't, and they watch videos like mine or Steven Crowder, you've got an eclectic group and diverse opinions. Certainly, a group that respects diverse opinions and freedom and liberty and opposes racism, not Nazis. But what about this woman? A woman who supports mandates, forced medical procedures, people who defend Australia putting people in quarantine camps without due process. I think we know who the Nazis are. I don't care to use that word, though. We need a new word for what's happening today, and it won't really stick. It won't punch, in any kind of way like Nazi or fascist will for some time. She goes on to say, I wanted to know how I could fight against the appallingly stupid yet dangerously widespread disinformation that is entrancing many of my friends and neighbors. Basic facts about COVID-19 are being dismissed by whole states as part of the liberal mainstream corporate media. How much you want to bet this lady doesn't read anything but Huffington Post? Bodies from COVID victims were stacking up on ICUs and filling morgues back in 2020, yet I was still called a child abuser by people on the street because I made my son wear a mask. Really? And no one at this meeting called you a name or insulted you or called you an abuser? That's strange, isn't it? Why are people going nuts? Well, you need only look in a mirror, lady. Why are people dismissing science and history in favor of conspiracy theories? Yes, why are you? And most importantly, how could we nudge the nation in a saner direction? Well, for one, you could start reading more. I was especially curious about activist groups that specifically targeted suburban women. These groups seemed intent on making life more dangerous for my child. According to my local right-wing women's group, masks should not be allowed in school. They told us to stop worrying about kids dying of COVID. They were also vocal about not wanting racism and its deep formative history in the United States to be taught. Now, that's not true. Some of these people literally do not believe white privilege exists because, according to them, the Union soldiers who fought in the Civil War were overwhelmingly white. No, I don't understand that argument either. Others feel parts of the country's history shouldn't be included in curriculums if it makes people, namely white people, uncomfortable. You see, it's how they manipulate. So I have to assume a woman like this is intentionally deceiving you. Because when we had Ari the Rugged Man, I know it keeps coming up, but he was a good example of this. When he came on the show, he said, y'all, don't want history to be taught. And I was like, who said that? And he's like, you want to ban critical race theory. And I said, who said that? Yo, you don't watch anything we do. No, we don't want critical race theory as a subject matter banned. We want praxis. I don't want them pulling out the Bible and telling kids to turn to chapter and verse, whatever. I don't want them to put in their assignments religious practice. But they can absolutely tell kids, teach them about what the religion is, what they should understand about it, why people believe certain things. But it shouldn't be like a religious, religion class. Well, actually, I take that back. I think a religion class is probably fine. Here's what people believe and here's why. But it shouldn't be overwhelmingly like we want you to be a Christian. Though I certainly think Christian values are way better than this cult practice. But I think zealotry across the board is bad. They don't want people to teach history about our shameful history. It's just not true. What's actually happening is these people, they're pushing something interesting about white privilege and these ideas. They want people to, actually, they get into it. Let me read. Every teacher I knew was struggling with COVID restrictions and dealing with students venting their post-pandemic trauma. We're still in the pandemic. Through increasingly disruptive behavior. School districts across the country were dealing with staffing shortages due to teachers burning out from stress. Why add to teachers' difficulties by threatening school instructors who dared to teach topics like Jim Crow laws, the civil rights movement, and the repercussions of slavery in America? To learn more, I joined a local right-wing Facebook group for moms. It's a private group that requires aspiring members to answer some questions before they're granted entry. One was, why do you want to join? I replied, I want to be more involved with my kids' school. A week passed and then a moderator of the group contacted me privately. Can you be more specific about what issue most concerns you? Yikes. Security was apparently very tight with this group. What? Tell us what you're concerned about. We're curious. That's security. They're on to me. I'm mostly interested in issues that involve keeping kids physically in school. Zoom school was devastating for my kid, and I don't want it to happen again. I wasn't lying about any of that. It's one of the few opinions I share with many conservative parents. The moderator sent me a thumbs up emoji and let me join the group. Once inside, I found the members were all stripes of Republican, and I was pleasantly surprised to see opinions were not monolithic in the group. Several moms argued against the more far-right posters. One woman posted an objection to children reading To Kill a Mockingbird. There's a part where, one student posted a screenshot. I'm in English right now. We're currently reading To Kill a Mockingbird. There's a part where Calpurnia brings the kids to church with her, and another black woman is being extremely racist towards Scout and Jem. My teacher was saying that it was not racism because white people have a higher power over black people in society and that black people can't be racist. Isn't it amazing? That is literally critical race theory in practice. Critical theory, Marxist ideology, believes that society is built upon oppressed and oppressors, and that the wealthy are oppressors and the poor are oppressed. Well, Kimberly Crenshaw said that doesn't explain racial dynamics in America. We need to take the teachings and ideas of Karl Marx and apply it to race ideology, and thus you end up with critical race theory. Not just critical theory, in which the society is built up based on oppressed and oppressors, just like Karl Marx says, but it's racial issues. Therefore, the dominant race in the country is white, and they are the oppressors, and black people are the oppressed. Therefore, racism can only be from white people. Critical race theory. Now, this woman doesn't know that. The one who writes this, because she doesn't read anything about this stuff. She has no idea what she's talking about. She just believes what she reads in Huffington Post and CNN, and does not have a balanced news diet, nor does she do independent research. I don't blame her for that. But we also have another problem here in this point. When she says that these people had different opinions and they were arguing. Far right? You mean you've got moderates arguing with conservatives, arguing with far right, and you think that is all far right? You think that is all Republican? It's fascinating. No, I reject this. The way I see it is there's actually one political compass. I am very clearly on the left, not far left, though, just a little center left libertarian. People like my friend Luke Rudkowski is center right libertarian, more anarcho-capitalist than I am. And many of you are probably varying degrees of libertarian. That's the real political compass. Then you have the other one, cult. That's it. You know, it was a week ago or so, I said, maybe 2 weeks ago, there's two different political compasses. Because you've got people like Bill Kristol, who's supposedly a conservative, on the right of the cult, but still believing the same things to a great degree. You've got people like, what's her face? Jen Rubin from, I think her name is, from the Washington Post, who is supposedly a conservative, but is in line with wokeness and hates the Republicans. Now, I said there are two political compasses, because if you believe in their reality, but you're more conservative, then you're to the right of them. They say I'm on the right, even though my policy positions more so align with many progressives, except the progressives tend to be authoritarian. They tend to be wrong about basic facts, and they overwhelmingly support corrupt government officials and corporations. So they're to the right of me. There's one political compass and there's a cult. In the cult, you get people like this woman who says, even though she can recognize a variety of opinions, that something that doesn't exist in the cult, she thinks they're the far right. Well, this is good. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because it is a white pill thing. You know what I mean? It's like it should be giving you optimism. It shows that regular people are coming together from all different political backgrounds and they're discussing these things. Let me give you an example. She writes, there were several indignant emoji reactions in response to this post. One mom, however, pushed back. Well, she commented, the woman at the church complained that Calpurnia had brought white children to the black church, possibly one of the few places black people felt any sense of freedom and safety. It's a little absurd to call the women racist given the context. The comment got a couple likes and no pushback. No pushback? You mean to tell me that a fairly progressive opinion appeared on the far right message board and it got some likes and no pushback? You're in a cult, lady. Please wake up. I beg of all of you. You joined the group. Look at the opinion this lady posted. Don't call her racist. She wanted a safe space. Isn't that more left? You see, you can believe in social justice, whatever they want to call it. You can actually believe in critical race theory. But if you don't believe in reality, you're going to be in a cult. In reality, people of different opinions are coming together and having conversations. That's where we are. That's why my political opinions can be center left on certain issues like universal health care or whatever. But then the left says, but Tim, he only passively ever mentions he supports things like that because they demand that I fall in line with the cult, scream the things they demand I scream, and my political opinions don't matter, period. Think about that. You know, that's the world we live in, where I can literally be like universal basic health care should be. When I say basic, it's got to be supplemented by private. That way you don't run into problems of government restricting your access to health care through vax mandates. And regular people will still have some access as opposed to being, left out in the street with flu and then dying or, breaking a bone, not being able to get it treated. And we can help alleviate a lot of this medical debt, which I believe holds back a lot of our economy. It holds America back. I could be wrong about that. I don't know. Clearly a more left-wing opinion, but it doesn't matter because I'm not in the cult. So anyone outside of the cult is right-wing. Anyone in it is left-wing, apparently. She says another surprise I found in the group was that some huge media outlets were giving them a platform. One of the founders of the group posted that she had done an interview with the New York Times as part of a story on parental rights. The New York Times, I was dumbfounded. None of the women who ran the pro-Democrat indivisible groups in my town had even managed to get an interview with a local paper. I scanned the comments and my eyes nearly popped out of my head. It'll be fine, another mom wrote, after the initial poster expressed concern about the New York Times, misquoting her. It's a lesson I learned the hard way after the BBC screwed me. The BBC was talking to these women. Look how shocked the cult is. You see, many of these people live in such an extreme left-wing bubble. They don't even interact with left-wing publications like the BBC and the New York Times. That's how insane the cult is. I had to know more. Unfortunately, a few of the moms may have become suspicious of me. Perhaps I had liked too many comments by moms pushing back against the anti-CRT posts. Perhaps some moderators had found the very liberal comments I had posted in other public news articles. In any case, when I expressed interest in joining an in-person roundtable discussion, I saw the location of the event suddenly disappeared. I messaged the group moderator about the event location. Just a heads up. I think most people will not be masking. Is it something you'll be comfortable with? Yes, that's fine, I replied. I never received a location, but luckily I had written it down before it disappeared from the event post. Look how narcissistic she is, too. She thinks it's about her. I drove to the meeting with my son. The group moderator had been right. When I joined the meeting, I saw that nobody in the packed room was masked. I gritted my teeth and sat down anyway. I was fully vaccinated. My son wore a mask. He was the only one. I listened to the speakers at the meeting while they discussed how to run for campaign and pressure school boards. Many parents bemoaned how they had to pull their kids back from public schools over mask mandates. There was a lot of anger directed at teachers. I raised my hand. What do you say to people who are like, oh, you're going to put bounties on teachers' heads? You're marching outside of school board members' homes with guns? I could see several women visibly flinch at the word bounty. One woman said she disliked the term bounty, but you could see the need for monetary compensation for those who turn in teachers that were doing things parents found unacceptable. There are no repercussions for teachers who break the law, she said. If we have to offer monetary compensation for people to report teachers, I see no problem with that. It's an incentive for people to wake up. It wasn't clear what laws these teachers were supposedly breaking. As far as I could tell, teachers like everyone else got punished if they broke laws. Another woman raised her hand. Look, I know we want to change school boards, but elections aren't until 2023. What do we do until then? We can't just sit around and let them attack our kids. We have to do something. Bravo, ma'am. I caught a gleam in the woman's eye I didn't like. Was there some flirtation with insurrection being suggested here? What exactly was she saying? Another woman nodded. Listen, we've tried playing nice, but they just dig in their heels and dig in their heels. We have to start being not so nice. I didn't like where this discussion was going. The moderator guided the topic back to safer ground. Be pleasantly persistent, be annoying, be the woman at the school board meetings who always shows up, be the person who, when the meeting organizers see you, say, oh God, her again. Be that person and please try to get people to vote in municipal elections. Fair enough. A lot of roundtable debate felt like a Republican version of a run for something meeting. Despite my uneasiness, I couldn't help but find myself liking the women in the room. They were charismatic and energetic. They had no problem letting my low-functioning autistic son play with their children, which is unfortunately rare among a lot of mothers. It's amazing. When this woman is in the cult room, they're mean to her. They're mean to her child. And here in a room of charismatic, independent women who are nice to her, she still views them as the bad guys. She mentioned she's still a member. And she ends by saying, I can't stop thinking about the gleam in the women's eyes. She said, we can't just sit around and let them attack our kids. Though some people think merely tweeting or outrage or frustration is productive, it's not. Those of us fighting against the far right need to be more aware of how energetic and organized they're becoming and the lengths they're willing to go in order to get their way. Right-wing activists are attending school board meetings in hopes of transforming our children's education and ultimately their lives and the future of the United States. It's time for us to be just as active to ensure this doesn't happen. We must fight for our children's safety and their right to learn our nation's history, even the ugly parts, especially the ugly parts. She's lying. I will tell you this. It is my belief that this woman is intentionally trying to deceive and manipulate. Why? Look at what she just said. If she had actually gone to one of these meetings, she'd learn the parents do want their kids to learn these things. That every single guest we've had on Timcast IRL, from conservative or otherwise, has said, teach the kids about the history of the Native Americans. Teach them about the history of slavery. Teach them about Japanese internment camps. No one is denying that. But in the fake world the cult lives in, they need you to believe that it's not the case. They want you to believe that teachers are being forced to stop teaching the horrors of Jim Crow. How? How is it possible? I went to school in Chicago. I went to a private Catholic school and I went to a public school, and they taught us all of this because they're lying. Because they're lying. They need you to believe that these women who want their kids to be free from coercion are evil, so that you're scared of them. They don't want you reading the news. But I'll tell you this. The reason I saw this and wanted to do a segment on it is I believe this should be cause for optimism. What we're seeing now is this writer, Phoebe Cohen, goes into this meeting and discovers an eclectic, freedom-loving group of people who want to protect their kids, who understand racism is a real problem and generally just want to be good parents. That's what she discovered. That means that people like you and me, regular people, moderates, independents, conservatives, traditional Christian conservatives, whatever, are all overlapping. And that's something we've seen in the polls. And the Democrats, for the most part, I say for the most part, are in a cult, blinded by their own zealotry and fake news and unwilling to break out of that bubble, and blinded by deceptive articles like this that they consume in Huffington Post. So I suppose I should say, more and more we're learning that regular people are waking up, and that's a good thing. And they're desperate to try and make it seem like it's not the case. Well, there you go. Good job infiltrating a regular group of moms. You've proven yourself wrong. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.